The North Korean War began on June 25, 1950. It was the first military action of the Cold War. 75,000 soldiers from the North Korean People's Army poured across the 38th parallel, the boundary between the Soviet Democratic People's Republic of Korea to the north and the pro-Western Republic of Korea to the south. In July, American troops entered the war on South Korea's behalf. As far as the Americans knew, this was a war on international communism. After a while between the 38th parallel, the fighting stalled. Meanwhile, the Americans worked to cease fire with North Koreans. They feared that the conflict would spread with more countries and even start World War III. In July 1953, the Korean War came to an end. 5 million soldiers and civilians lost their lives to what they recall as the Forgotten War, for the lack of attention the war received. What caused the Korean War? The Korean War was a civil war, says Charles Kim, Korea's Foundation Associate Professor. Korea was a unified kingdom for centuries before Japan took over it, following their victory in the Russo-Japan War. The Japanese ruled over Korea and forbade them to their Korean language and de-emphasized Korean history to weaken their colony. After the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the control of the Korean peninsula passed to the Americans and the Soviet Union. The United States and Soviet Union, also known as the superpowers, decided it was a good idea to divide Korea between themselves at the 38th parallel. The Soviets set up a communist government while the United States established a military government in the south. This roughly bisected the peninsula. Both wanted to invade the other to unify Korea. In 1948, the United States sponsored a vote for the Koreans to determine the future government. The North refused to participate and South Korea formed its government in Seoul under the anti-communist Syngman Rhee. In 1950, Kim Sung, the dictator of North Korea, went to Moscow to seek support for invading South Korea. He was able to get Joseph Stalin to help the invasion. The North Korean invasion came as a surprise. They were concerned that this was not a dispute about the border, but feared it was the first step in a communist campaign to take over the world. In April 1950, a National Security Council report recommended the United States to contain the communist expansion regardless of the economic value of the lands. This was a battle between good and evil. The North pushed into Seoul and the United States prepared to defend and get communists out of South Korea. This went badly because the North Korean army were well trained and well equipped. Also, this battle took place in the hottest and driest summers. The thirsty American soldiers were often forced to drink water from the rice paddies that were fertilized with human waste. This bred a dangerous intestinal disease. By the end of summer, President Truman and General Douglas's plan to liberate the North from the communists was a success. The Incheon landing pushed the North Koreans back to their side of the 38th parallel. Finally, after years of negotiation, the adversaries signed an armistice, an agreement between both sides of the war for a certain time, on July 27, 1953. The agreement allowed a new drawn boundary near the 38th parallel and also gave South Korea an extra 1,500 square mile of territory and created a 2-mile wide demilitarized zone that still exists today.